Hello, 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 beautiful unicorns. How are you all doing today? So today I have Bethany Briggs with me, and my name is Yana Kasperczak. And so I want to practice to start doing these introductions for these videos because we've really just been hopping on and going with the conversation without taking all the viewers into consideration. So we listened, and now we are taking action and making sure that when you land on my podcast, that you know that whether it's for you or not. So this is just me letting you know of heads up of what's going to be happening as we go further. So my name is Yana, and I'm a creator of Empathy Unicorn Academy. And I have Bethany here today as my guest, and we will be actually discussing intuition. This is a very hot topic going around because people either know what intuition is and how to use it, or they don't know, and yet they do. They're just not consciously aware what it is and want to learn how to use it. And then people that know what intuition is and want to know how to use it. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. And then in terms of who is this channel for, the easiest and fastest and the best way that I found to explain it is it's for anyone who wants to become the best version of themselves, and that way they can learn to live their life authentically, which helps to feel free. And in the end, when we feel free and we feel great and we feel awesome, we end up achieving so much more than we even thought was possible. So if it sounds like you, or it sounds like that's who you want to be, then this channel is for you. Okay. How was that, Bethany? Was that good?
Oh yeah, I love that. That's perfect. I think it's exactly like where we're coming from. Yeah. Just be the best version of yourself and to speak your truth and let your uniqueness shine for the world to see.
And I just realized that this was actually a perfect example of what authenticity is like. You guys got to see of how I practice my speeches, how I practice things with people, and then when they let me know whether they liked it or not, always honest feedback, then I decide to clap for myself. And that right there is so freaking important. Celebrate every win. Even these tiny little wins where I just kind of came up with things on top of my mind. But things are exactly what it is.
Yeah. Pat on your back, give yourself a hug, snaps, whatever.
For you, like for me, for example, the tapping on the back, I like it, but I'm not a big fan of it because growing up, it felt very demeaning when people would do it to me. So I don't like anybody else doing it to me, but I'm okay doing it to myself. But I like to clap for myself. Whereas other people, for example, Rachel, you guys might have seen videos of me and Rachel doing, she likes to do the snaps. Whereas for me, I like to do the clap.
Yeah.
And then the hug as well. I mean, these puppies get in the way. So yeah, I feel like this is a little too tight.
Yeah.
So yeah, now intuition. I want you, Bethany, to start the conversation with intuition and pave the way for me, for us.
All right. Well, so for intuition, this is something that I've been working on a lot lately, and really intuition and like trusting yourself, erasing the self-doubt of I actually had this experience last night. So I had to take stuff to my safety deposit box, and I did it real quick. And usually I go into a room and I, make sure everything is perfect and I put it in there. But this time I was like, no, it's okay. I'm just going to do this real quick. But then leaving, I was like, oh my gosh, what if something fell out? What if I lost something? Oh, like and I just started doubting myself, and I started to go into this spiral of like anxious feelings. And I was just like, oh my gosh, well, this is what it feels like when I'm not trusting my intuition. And I was able to I centered myself, did some little strategies, that we actually went over yesterday in our law of being work, and just listened to myself though. And I sat down and I was like, did you put it all in there? Like what's supposed to be in there? And my intuition was like, yes, it's there. Like, stop stressing. It's okay. Take a deep breath. Like, you could either have your choice of being stressed out, anxious, like, oh my gosh, is it in there? Or you could have a nice evening with your family, be in the moment, and know that you did what you were wanting to do already and it's there, and to trust yourself. And after I had that experience, I grounded myself. But then I got so exhausted and I had like this physical pain actually. And it just like brought to my mind, like, wow, when you're not trusting your intuition, you feel pain, you get pain in your body. And so yeah, it just is an interesting experience because like, yeah, you don't want to feel that, but at the same time I felt like it was necessary to kind of gauge like, okay, this is me when I'm choosing to trust my intuition, and this is me when I'm not choosing to trust it and just let my mind overreact and wander.
Yeah, that's a,
Yeah.
and as you probably saw me looking down, what I was doing, I thought, like, you know what? I'm going to Google the definition of intuition. So that way we can share it right here and there and see where that leads us. Intuition, the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. We shall allow our intuition to guide us. Some people call it as a gut feeling.
Mm.
We know something, or sometimes here's the other thing, some people call it a sixth sense. We intuitively know, and that in our gut, which feels like a heart, right? Our gut isn't our second heart, really. Really, apparently that it actually is.
No.
And when we feel it in our gut, we're like, ooh, something is coming. And what is it? Like we brace for impact. And usually we wait for bad things to happen. Whereas intuition can be used in our every waking moment of our every single day. And the question came to mind that I get asked quite often is how can you uncover and strengthen your intuition? And this is typically how I answer. Intuition is not something that you uncover. Intuition is something that you already have. So then that answers the first part of the question. The second part of the question is how do you strengthen it? And you strengthen it by actually trusting it and believing that it exists, that it's there, that it's a part of you, and listen to it. And another way of strengthening it is when you have these intuitive hits, write it down.
Yep.
And if you have an intuitive hits, I do this in my coaching all the time and in conversations as well, but mostly in my coaching is when I'm listening to what my client is saying, and then I just keep hearing this repetitive word or phrase, and then I just repeat it back to the client and ask them, what does that mean to you? Because most of the time it doesn't mean anything to me, right? And I don't want it to mean anything to me because I know it wasn't mine. And that's because I tune in to my client and focus on my client, and everything that comes through is for my client, not for myself. Because otherwise I'd be having a conversation with myself. And I do that.
I do too. Yeah. I've that last night when I was dealing with all that, I had a conversation with myself. I looked in the mirror and was like, hey, like, and I wrote it out too. And it took doing that to like be like, okay, I got this. I hear you. I hear you.
Exactly, right? Now, the second part of what it says on here, in the dictionary, I think that one knows or considers likely from instinctive feeling rather than conscious reasoning, which means that intuition is not a conscious thing. It's and it's not something that you can reason with. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know about you, Bethany, but I've tried to reason with my intuitive hits, and it's a losing battle because the
Mhm.
reasoning goes, I believe you, and then I follow through, and then I see the rewards, or no, I don't. Yes, I do. No, I don't. And then, of course, usually when you have that hesitation, that's when you go on the other end. It's like, and it says, well, you don't want me, that's fine. But in terms of strengthening the intuition, is just calling out what you see.
Mhm.
Sometimes I actually do that with people that I meet as well in conversations. And I find that that actually has been helpful as well. So when I'm having a conversation with someone, I love to connect with people on Zoom. Because I mean, nowadays, and this is it's perfect for me with COVID because I it's not that I don't like going places to meet people, it's that I do like to do that in the comfort of my home. So now with Zoom and with COVID, it's perfect. And when I get to have these conversations with people, if I start to feel a certain way and my intuition tells me that that's not you, that it's the other person. So I bring that up in the ways that I feel is the right way to bring it up with that particular individual using my intuition. And say it. And I mean, at first it feels really awkward and like pointing it out and thinking, oh my God, they're going to take it personally. But I have not had anyone tell me that they felt that it was personal. They just kind of like, oh wow, like how did you know that I just started to feel really anxious right here and there for no particular reason.
Mhm.
Right, because that's what I would say. Like I started to feel like there's like some anxiety in my chest, and I know it's not me because I've learned to differentiate what's mine and what's not. I just wanted to know and check my intuition. Is it possible that it's you? Right? How are you
Yeah.
feeling in this moment? And this is when they say yes, like, oh my God, that's awesome. And this is where they and then we start to have the conversation about intuition. And that's how you get to strengthen your intuition by checking the validity of what is coming through to you. It can come in ways of feelings, and then you can translate those feelings into words. Sometimes it comes in words or
Mhm.
phrases or just random words that don't particularly make any sense. And if you are with someone, just think of whose words or for who those words were meant to be. And then ask them again. I just got it. I've been working on my intuition, and I've been working on strengthening my intuition. And I wanted to do a little test and check out how my intuition is developing. And then say, I got these words in my mind and I felt like they were meant for you. So let me know if they mean anything to you because they mean not, they don't really mean anything to me. I don't understand them. And then say those words, what they mean, and see their response. And if you're
Yeah.
wrong, be like, oh, well, good to know, right? So that means that they're meant for somebody else because they weren't mine. If they were yours, you would know what they meant.
Yeah. And I feel like that's when us as empaths, kind of like, because we can pick up on other people's feelings. So being an empath, you have a higher, like, intuitive, like, I guess, reflex. I don't know if that's the correct, like you have a higher intuitive, like, um, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but you know what I mean. Like just like that aura of intuition is a little higher than just like the
Yeah.
yeah, like you can pick up on it a little bit easier. And there is times, like you said, like I'm slowly learning it more because I used to always be like, oh, that's how I'm feeling when I'd pick up on someone else or like intuitively like someone else's feelings. And I'm slowly learning to differentiate the two now. And it's gotten easier. But yeah, it's interesting. I love intuition, and it's powerful too. Because I had a funny like, well, I don't know. It's funny to me now. So I have to move in a couple months, and my intuition was trying to tell me this a couple months ago, like you're gonna have to move, and I would be like, nope, 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 no, like I'm manifesting to stay here, no, and my intuition's like, okay, you can believe that, but like, all right, like whatever. And it left me alone. But then finding out at the beginning of this month, we have to move. I was just like, Oh, okay. I ignored you, intuition, and I apologized to her. And I'm like, I'm sorry I didn't listen to you, to my higher self. Like, like I'm working on listening to it better now. And it's just, yeah, so this topic, I'm glad we're discussing it today because it's
Mhm.
just it's
Yeah.
interesting how it affects everyone differently as well.
Yeah, and it shows up differently, and that's why it's like no shoe fits all. Cinderella's shoe only fits Cinderella, it did not fit anyone else, and your shoes only fit you, and only you can wear your shoes. So, as much as I would love to come into your world and tell you how your intuition works for you, that's not something that I can do. I mean, I can help by helping you to connect the dots, but I mean, the rest is up to each and every individual to figure out how is it showing up, because sometimes it comes in like almost like a wave that goes through the body, and for me sometimes it shows up differently as well, right? Intuitive feeling of intuitively feeling the other person, and yes, through the screen as well. It's not just in person. Energetic change, even if you're living on the other side of the world and we're like miles and miles and kilometers or whatever away, depending where you live, because here we have kilometers, you guys have miles in the States.
Right.
And that energy travels like light speed.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's been times where like I pick up on someone's intuition and then I have to sit there and be like, well, is that mine? No, it's not for me. But like you said, I'll still like mention it. And then most of the time, like, it resonates with them. And like in my head, I'm kind of like, well, hopefully I don't get offended, like you're saying. And they usually don't. It's kind of like, oh wow, yeah, you're right. Like I
Yeah.
was feeling that way. How did you know? Like
Yeah. It's all about the way that you um, present what you want to ask them, how you carry yourself. And most important things I will mention is make sure that it does not come across as an attack or make it personal about them. And if the feelings, especially when you're talking about anxiety, right, or feeling down and depression, sometimes you can feel that way. Making sure that if they do say yes, that you
yeah,
validate them. You validate their feeling, which means that you let them know that I get you, I hear you, I understand you, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with the feeling, right?
yeah,
You can have a conversation about it. Tell me a little bit more about it, right?
right.
Help me to understand what do you think might be causing it.
No.
Get a deeper understanding of them, and then let them know thank you for helping me to strengthen my intuition,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I mean, how I've never had the conversation like that ever go bad,
Right.
right? Because nothing is said. I don't take things personally either, even though like in the moment it's been a while since I've even the moment felt like it was a personal attack. But even in the moment when I used to feel like somebody would say something and that it was a personal attack, I've really quickly uh, just knew that it wasn't about me.
I
Right, and it
agree.
wasn't meant to be personal. We're all really just finding ways of how we can communicate, and communication is a skill. This is not something that we're born with, and we are all working towards becoming better communicators by practicing having these conversations with people. And the only way that we can become the version that we want to become is by continue practicing. The only way that we can strengthen our intuition and live life intuitively, which is, I mean, beautiful. It's really about being in the moment, because that's what happens when you live life intuitively. Because each and every moment you check in with your intuition, and the only way to achieve that is through practice and practice and practice. And sometimes it might be a little uncomfortable, especially in the beginning, right? A baby might not have those kind of feelings when they're learning to speak, but we as adults become a little too knowledgeable and experienced, and that's why we can experience a little bit of fear when we start anything new.
Definitely, definitely. And it's about also that like practice makes progress, you know, like every time you practice something, you're making progress on growth and stuff, you know. So it's like, and that's something I had to learn too, and not be hard on yourself. Don't punish yourself when you have those moments of like, oh, you know, because I used to beat myself up constantly. I mean, you know that, like from our past sessions and all that. Like, and once I started to love myself, I stopped punishing myself and I looked more for the silver lining of it all. Like, okay, what am I going to learn from this instead of being like, oh, man, you know, like, poor me. Like, everything happens to me. Now it's like, oh, if this is happening, so what can I do now? Like, and I like to strengthen my intuition with meditation as well. I mean, I wanted to say that earlier, but I forgot about it. But yeah, meditation helps me, or you know, centering yourself really helps me strengthen the intuition, because I like to sit there with it and be like, what are you trying to tell me? And then I just listen and breathe and just let it be. And last night I did that, like with my example that I talked about early on. And I just felt like a sense of peace come from it, and like unconditional love. And it was just like it was like wrapping me in like a warm embrace. And I was just like, oh wow, you know, it's hard to explain, but it's super powerful when that happens. Um
That sounds like a really beautiful, warm hug, embrace experience. Uh,
Yes, it was like, hey, you're okay. It's okay. You did it right. You know, you did what you're supposed to do. Like, just now let it go.
yeah.
Release.
And earlier on, when you were talking about your intuition, you called her a she.
Yes.
I listened to her. She told me, and that reminded me that some people find it helpful to almost see intuition as something outside of them,
Mhm.
even though it's a part of them. So something that is like a part of them, but that they can almost check in with her or him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in that example, give him or her a name.
I
What
was just,
would you call her? What would be her name? And you can actually have a conversation with her or with him.
yeah, my intuition's name is Iris. That's who I check in with. And also I'll use my own name too sometimes, because we work together. Iris and me work together to find the common balance.
Yeah, you are one. And that's
Yeah.
what now we have. I'm laughing because I'm like, I know some people have said to me, you must be a crazy person if you have so many split personalities, all these different names you have in your name that in your head that you talk to. But it makes sense if you have been following me on my journey, that I've talked about the gremlin, and the gremlin is that voice that tells you in all the different ways that you're not good enough.
Mhm.
So naming your gremlin, and talking to your gremlin, giving your gremlin a job, and then you have a higher coach, right? Someone who encourages you and tells you how awesome you are, giving you higher coach a name.
Mhm.
And then sometimes you can have a friend in there as well. So you can name a friend. I don't particularly have a friend, but some people do. And that works. Then you have your intuition, and you can give intuition a name, and you can have a conversation with your intuition and check in with her once in a while or every day. Maybe you can even set an alarm on your watch that can remind you. Talk to Iris. How is she doing?
Yeah. Yeah, and I also have a name for my ego. I relate to you because like I've been very like it took me a minute to be able to actually express the names because of what you just said, like, oh, someone's gonna think I'm crazy. But if they think that, they're thinking that about themselves more than anything, or maybe they're jealous that they don't have these like parts that they can separate. Who knows? Like,
right? Because you've become so aware of the different parts of yourself. They all make you, they all make
mhm.
Bethany, but they are different parts of yourself. And by connecting with different part of yourself, and that's where the name comes in. And I mean, you know what they say when you have puppies and you have kittens, don't name them because you will keep them. So that's what it is. You name them, and that means you take ownership of that part of yourself. And in the way you separate it from yourself, like this puppy and a kitten, that you can pet or scold or remind them what you're supposed to be doing. Don't be bitching at me right now. Your job is to cheer for me. That's my grandma's job, to be my cheerleader, not to be pushing me. And I mean,
Yeah,
so that,
small.
but yeah, and like exactly, it's everyone's concern. Sorry, what you were saying is that when people think of us as these crazies and weirdos because we're named all these parts of ourselves, and that they could be feeling jealous, and that could be exactly it. They're just not aware of it. And where the jealousy comes from is the awareness that you have around your whole self, and recognizing, okay, so right now this is what I'm hearing. Right, we've all are familiar with the angel and the devil on our shoulders. That's that's exactly what it is, just an expansion of it on an energetic level and on the mental level. And you can connect with all these different parts of yourself and separate them from yourself. Then it feels a lot easier once we recognize them, become aware of that particular voice, and then name it and communicate with that voice. Communicate just means when you hear it, then you can have a conversation with it in your mind or in the mirror. And most of my conversation goes something like this: Shut up. I didn't ask you what you think of me. All right. I want to hear what you think of me. Asking my higher coach, right, and telling my gremlin to keep it down. And and that's when by telling that voice, because sometimes I gotta say shut up, because that's what helps me to get a little bit to level 2, like that little anger is like, be quiet. I've heard enough of you. I am tired and fed up. You are not helping me. What do you have to add? Right. And then the higher coach, of course, comes in and tells me, this is what I think of you. You're a magnificent unicorn. So to me, typically, I'm like, oh, okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah, just from last night, and with also that other experience that I like stories. We both like stories. I like to do personal examples because you never know, like your personal example might be someone else's example, and they're like, oh, how did you know? Like, yeah, right. But yeah, I tend to do that too, where it's like during those times where I notice my gremlin or ego arises, it's like, hey, I hear you, but remember your job. Remember, we're here to love and encourage, compassion, have understanding. And it always like brings me to my higher coach and my intuition and then myself, and I'm able to bring in the unity, add us, have
Mhm.
us be one.
Yeah.
Here in the heart. That's yeah.
And
Because
see,
every
I kind of laughed about it and made it very playful of this conversation.
Mhm.
But the reason why I have to shut that voice up is because in the things that it tells me, I know they're lies, and they make me feel so tiny and so insignificant, to a point where it's like, why do I even bother, right? Why do I keep um, showing up, or why do I keep doing these things? Why do I keep wanting to I mean, building a business is a really difficult thing. It's hard. And this is where my gremlin comes in and tells me, well, you're not successful, just take a break, take it easier, and things like that. And this is where it's not helpful. It really makes me feel very crappy about myself. And that's when I have to be very abrupt and say, shut it. I don't want to hear it. It's not nice. I'm not mean to you. Why are you being mean to me? I don't want to talk to you anymore. Go do your job or you're going to be fired.
And that's something, right? And that's something I had to do last night and be like, hey, stop. We know we don't like to feel this way. Like, just knock it off. Yeah. Like, go center yourself, go on a timeout. It's time. And sometimes I have to give myself a timeout because it's what those parts need at the time. And it's like going back to the intuition, trusting yourself and how you're feeling, and being able to differentiate other people's feelings around you, like your family members, with your own. Because sometimes, like, well, my husband now, my husband, for those that don't know, I got married on Monday. So my last name will be changing to Briggs soon. I'm excited. Yeah, not so much Vigers anymore. But with my husband or my son, sometimes I pick up on what they're feeling and I'm like, oh, that's how I'm feeling. And then I'm like, wait, no, I'm not. Like, stop. Like, the abrupt, stop it. That's not your feelings. You're feeling someone else's. Let's regather ourselves here. Let's let's go up in the head instead of being so low in the body, I guess.
Yeah, and that's also a great point. What that reminded me of is when we live in the close quarters with people and people that we care about and love the most. This is when we can misinterpret the feelings that we're feeling of our partner and take it in as our own if we don't check them at the door, right? Which means that when you start to feel a certain way, that's the door being opened and that feeling comes in. So check it at that door, right? You would not want your partner to come home in a bad, bitter mood and to, release that energy inside the house. The same thing with those feelings. When you start to feel a certain way, check it at the door, right? Ask questions like, why am I feeling this way? Is this my feeling or is this coming from somebody else? Right. And if it is yours, and I mean, easier way, if it's not yours, then just say, okay, if this is not my feeling, thank you for trying to visit, but you are not welcome here. Please go back to the owner and trust that that individual is more than capable of dealing with their own feelings and emotions. Okay.
Yeah.
Trust one another. That's a huge one. And then if it is yours, then the question, where is it coming from? What thought is causing that feeling? Because that feeling is coming from a thought, whether you are consciously aware of it or not. And once you recognize that thought, then you change it to a love-based thought that will be more serving to you than the one that's here. Okay, those of you that are not familiar with what that is like, Rachel and I did a workshop, and there was part of love-based fear, fear-based thoughts, and love-based thoughts, where you really just take a fear-based thought, right, or emotion or feeling, and then you change it to the one that is the truth of who you are and the one that you actually would prefer. Of course, there's more explanation in the workshop that Rachel did, but that's just a basic explanation of what that's about. And check at the door and work through it, because then if you allow it to go in, at least you allow it to go in the way that you work through it, and then decide what you want to do with it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I was gonna say to that, when it's not yours, I like to say to myself, return to sender, return to sender. Yeah, that's what I always say. Like, it's not mine, return to sender. And then if it doesn't go away, it's like, okay, that was yours. Now, what is the root cause? What's what's the thought? What's causing it here? Because a lot of the times when you dig deep, you find the answers already, because they're already in with it. Like, they're within you already. You already have the answers.
Exactly. And that's why when you trust yourself that you already have the answers within you. Do the same thing for the other person in your life. And do that for all the people in your life. Trust everyone that they have the answer, that they don't need to hear your answer, right? And your solution to their problem, right? It's their problem, they need their solution. Your problem, your solution. And I'm sure most of you people, most of you people, most of you unicorns that are listening or watching, you are people, would also probably agree on this one. When we have a problem and we mention it to somebody else in our friend circle, most people will be very quick to give us the solution when we never even asked for it. And the point I want to make with that, there's nothing wrong with providing a solution, but ask for permission. Before you give the solution to a person, ask for permission. Because sometimes people just want to vent and that's all they want. They don't want a solution because they already have a solution. They just want to vent and release and verbally process what's going on. And in verbally processing, they will get their own answer because they have the answer within them. Otherwise, that problem would not come up. That problem would not exist in their world, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things that I've learned as a coach. That I mean, just watching my clients, you know, the most frustrating part to quite a few of my clients is when they ask me a question and they want me to give a solution. And this is what we were talking about in one of the posts that Rachel did. And that's what brought up that thought, that when they ask a question and they want me to give them the answer and they want me to give them a solution, I would ask a question instead, which can be frustrating for a moment. But I remind them that I know you have the answer within you. And I want you to really just pause and trust yourself. And if you just need to talk and express and to get to that answer, then do that. But I'm going to ask you, and then I ask the question. And usually, when they are, most of the people I work with, they are verbal processors, which means they just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And through the conversation, I see these moments. It's like, oh my God, that makes sense. I get it. Okay, that's what I need. That's what I want. And they get the answer to that question that they didn't previously believe that they had. And that is one of the most powerful things for any client. And I say that because I am also a client of two coaches. And for me, that's the most powerful thing is when I get the answer myself. Oh, I'm like, oh my God, I am so damn good. I got it. I can do anything. And if I feel that way, I know my clients feel that same way because they also do express. It's like, I didn't even know I had that in me.
Yeah, I agree completely because I mean, when I was more of your client, that's where I would definitely give those times, like, and you would see I get frustrated, like, what do you mean? Like, just tell me. You just tell me now. But then going into the time, like actually figuring out for myself, it was just like, aha, like, oh my gosh, that light bulb goes off. You see that like light there, and you're like, oh, that's what I was supposed to find. And I think that was the most powerful thing that I figured out was that I already had the answers within. I just have to trust myself and just follow my intuition.
Which is intuition, exactly,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
So
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
a great point is that you get to strengthen your intuition by working with a coach as well without actually recognizing that that's what you're doing. Because we as a coach, we trust you. We know you have the answer, that your intuition will tell you the answer and give you the answer. And that's what it does.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's powerful to find, like you said, it's powerful when you find out your own answers because it's just like, oh, look at me. It strengthens your confidence as well, makes you feel better about yourself and like gives you self-love. And I've noticed, like, for me, like when I had a lot of anxiety and depression, that I was missing the self-love for myself and the intuition. And that's when like I had those realizations, it came together and it was just like, oh my gosh, oh, this is amazing. Like want to do more.
Exactly. And I mean, that's where growth happens,
Mhm.
right? And I know um, that the things that clients uncover on their own, those are the things that they are actually much more likely to follow through and do because it was their idea. And we're all children, no matter how old we are. And if a child is being told what to do, they're less likely to do it. To be like, no, 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 no. This is what you want me to do. I'm not doing it, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna do what I want to do. And that's why most people, when you give them advice and they don't follow through on it, and then you get upset, why didn't they listen to my advice? It was great advice. Well, yeah, it was great advice for you, but not for them. And they didn't come up with it. So if you help them to come up with their own advice, you might actually learn something from their own advice that they come up with.
Yeah.
The, their life is entirely different. And that's my favorite part working with clients is that I get to learn all these different views and none of them, there's no right or wrong way, right? There's no right or wrong question. There's no right and wrong answer. That's why I always tell everyone in all of my sessions, especially when they're going through the law of being, there's some hesitations like, I don't know if I'm answering this question right. And again, there's no right or wrong way. However you understand it and interpret it, that's what it is. They can
Yeah.
use value, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And I feel like when you're at a different place in your life, like you can revisit that same question because you're going to come up with a different answer as you like dig deeper and deeper and deeper. You get that more intuition like spills out. It's like a cup, you're digging, you're going down deeper, and then you're able to like really get to the root of it all. And that's what I love. I just love learning and growing. I mean, it's always powerful.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I have in the past, when you give advice and they're like, it helped me, why isn't it helping you? But it's like, well, not everything is going to help each other the same. Like I could have my tools and medicine that help me, but they're not going to help you. And so that's why, like, for me, I don't really like give advice as much. I just said, well, hey, this is what I did and it helped me. In my experience, it might help you. But, go after your curiosities, try new things. Don't be afraid of trying new things. 'Cause you
Yeah.
never know. Like I went through so many tools and medicines before I found what really helps me, and my intuition. I had to listen to my intuition along the way, and really pinpoint those things. But
Mhm.
it takes time, and you got to be patient with yourself. Patience.
Patience is a virtue. We've heard that one many times.
Yeah.
And it is also a skill in a way, right? We can strengthen our patience and become more patient. And the moment that we decide this is what I want to work on, this is what Bethany and I were talking a couple of days ago about, is that when we decide that I will now want to work on my patience, what's going to happen is that when you state that this is what I want now, the universe says, okay, great. I'm here for you. I'm going to help you to get what you want. And in order to get what you want, you have to practice, which means that all of these lessons, all of these opportunities are going to fall into your lap that will test your patience
Yeah.
so you can strengthen it and be excited when these things happen instead of, oh my God, these things always happen to me. I just said I want to work on my patience. You're not helping me. But again, this is exactly why these things are happening
Yeah.
because you ask for it, because the universe always provides and wants you to succeed. So I know myself, I was one of those people where it's like I stated what I wanted, and then these things are coming to me. I'm like, oh my God, so annoying. I just want some peace and quiet. I don't want to be angry. I'm working on my anger. You're not helping me. And then little by little, I'm like, okay, it's like that phrase that the moment I decide that I want something, all of these obstacles come in my way, right? All of these things start happening to me. Well, yeah, because you wanted to get something, but you wanted to get it without doing any work. And you want to magically wake up overnight and all of a sudden be anger free or completely patient with no practice. No, that's not how it works. Because if you don't practice it, how are you going to be able to keep cool and be a cool cucumber when shit hits the fan?
Right. And I notice when the times that I don't, like, where it's that situation where like I want to work on this, but then in the past I'd get frustrated, it would just come back, it would come at me 10 times harder, like, okay, well, here's another experience. You really wanted to work on it. You didn't listen the first time. So here's another one. And every time I ignored it, but now and it's a work in progress. There's times where I fight it, but then I'm like, you know what? Let's stop fighting. Let's work together. Unity. Let's have some unity here.
We are one, and we've already
Yeah.
been separated more than enough with all of this stuff that's happening. And at the same time, it's like we're living in such a connected world, and yet we feel so disconnected. And one simple thing that comes to mind that helps us to feel more connected is take those rubber shoes off and touch the ground with your feet. I say
Mm-hmm.
feet because that's how I talk to my kids. 1 foot, 2 feet. and and just feel the ground. That's how we feel connected and connected with one another. Like, I mean, if we look at the underground, how the plants are connected, they are literally all connected by their roots. It becomes one large network, right? And we human beings used to be that same way until we started working on becoming more connected in different ways, right? And easier ways that did not require using our mental capacity and brain and energies and saving and sending energies and stuff like that, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. Intuition is just powerful. I love intuition. It's and really trusting yourself, like it's the most powerful thing also, because it's like you don't trust yourself, then how are you going to trust someone else, like when you don't trust your main person, like yourself.
Yeah. And that's a great point, right? If you can't trust yourself, how can you trust anyone else? And
Yeah.
typically, what I've also noticed is the people that don't trust other people in their life and they question everyone, they're the ones that do not trust and question themselves all the time with everything and anything.
Yeah.
And that trust, that self love, that everything starts from within. And once we have it from within us, then we're able to recognize it outside of us and see it outside of us. And that is when we start to recognize and feel that balance.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, I see we have Miss Cleo again. Oh, wow.
Uh,
She must really love our energy.
she comes here for her pets, right? Pet me, pet me. Uh,
Yeah. She's like,
she,
I have a clump here. I need you to help me.
yeah, and that's exactly the other thing that I also do because the other day we are talking about how her fur is like really thick,
Uh,
um,
yeah.
like parts that I can see that they're already coming out, and I just pull it out gently. Of course, doesn't even hurt her, and
Yeah.
and yeah, that's how I brush her. So, anyways, I think this is a perfect time to start wrapping up. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's watching us on my YouTube channel, which is Empathy Unicorn Academy, or listening on the podcast once we have the podcast up and running on there. All the information. How you can connect with us, with me, or with Bethany, or with both of us, will be down below in the description below. I would absolutely love and actually ask you for your support in sharing this podcast with someone who you know would benefit, or any other podcast that you see on my platform. Um, and subscribe, and how do they say it on YouTube, and hit that bell notification button to get notifications on when I upload the new videos. There, right? Practice makes progress. It doesn't make perfect, but I'm here just practicing as I have cat fur all over my face now. This is why this cat doesn't get
Yes.
much. Um, yeah, and connect with us. If you want to work with me and check out what I have to offer, then there's a website down below where you can go see what options you have in working with me. And again, any questions, comments are welcome, and put them down below. Um, we love the support and the help and the feedback from everyone, each and every
Yes,
one.
I agree. No, thank you, everyone. I'm so grateful for you all being here and listening to us talk about what's close to our hearts.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. This is something that is on our hearts, and this is something that Bethany brought it today to the topic to talk about, because this is something that both of us have been working on ever since we met, and it is very close to heart. Quite
Yeah.
literally, it's in our stomach, right? The gut
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And actually felt in the heart as well.
Yeah. Well, like you said, the gut is the second heart. Like it is true.
So thank you, Bethany, for being an awesome guest once again. I love our Wednesday Heal the Unicorn calls. So thank you, and I look forward to our next call.
Me too. And thank you for having me. I love our chats. They're always fun.
Once again, thank you everyone who has watched it or listened to it, and I love you all and appreciate each and every one of you, and especially you, Bethany.
I appreciate you too. All right. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.